Now, the final aspects we want to dip in as a general background about procurement department and procurement process is how you can define the procurement organization in order to support the execution of procurement activities. First of all, I want to tell you that if you want to manage with efficiency and effectiveness the procurement process, we need to define a procurement organization, and in order to do that, we should define three key organizational variables related to the procurement organization, which are the span of control, meaning the type and the nature of the activities that are under the scope of the procurement department of the company, the micro level organization, meaning how the procurement resources are organized within the department, and the level of centralization, meaning how much the procurement activities are centralized in a single department, or how much they are decentralized to single procurement offices, or other procurement function which are locally based. Let's start with the span of control, meaning again how much activities and of which nature are under the responsibility of the procurement department. And as we remember, the procurement process is divided into three steps, which are supply, sourcing, and strategic sourcing. And if we cross the potential benefits that the procurement department is able to bring to the company and the different phases of the procurement process, we can see that the procurement contribution to company performance is higher when procurement is early involved in strategic decision, meaning that if we just give the procurement department responsibility on the supply phase, which is unfortunately very common in some companies today, the potential benefits that procurement department is able to give to the company are low, because they can just affect the order, invoice, payment, and goods delivery activities, while instead, if they are given responsibilities on supplier selection, on contract definition, on requirements management, on supplier relationship management, and stuff like this, the procurement department having expertise on procurement related activities, of course, are able to bring some more potential benefit to the company. But despite this consideration, this is an organizational choice. I configure a procurement department by deciding which type of activities the procurement department will be asked to manage. They can be only the more operational aspect, or they can be extending toward more strategic ones. Then we need to define how to group. We have 20 people in our procurement department. How they can be organized in a company. There are different options to do like that. They can be organized according to typology of project, goods, and services. So they mean that, as we told before, procurement department has within its scope what we call procurement categories. I group the different people according to the procurement categories that the procurement department needs to manage. So there will be a procurement office in the procurement department, which will be dedicated to the management of raw materials, another that will be dedicated to the management of services, another one dedicated to the management of indirect material and stuff like this. So I group competencies of people according to the category that the procurement department will manage. So the buyer, what we call the buyer, so the people who buy stuff in a company, will be specialized on a specific category, independently on final product or final customer they will be included in, or they will be satisfied need for. Realizing figure like category manager and commodity specialist. In this way, I group competencies within the same category, so I gain efficiency and bargaining power. Or I can group, all the per geographical area. So you can have a procurement department which has the office of Europe, the office of North America, and the office of South America. This means that these offices will group people which will buy stuff, so goods and services, for project and for site within the same geographical areas. In which way, I gain efficiency because I group, volume and request for each area, and by gaining power with the supplier at area level. Finally, there is also another option where I want to group we can say resources per input, so per geographical areas or per purchasing category the company is interested to, but per output. So in terms of products, project, or customer that characterize the company. I will dedicate procurement people managing goods and services for specific products sold, project executed, or customer served. It means that there will be an office which think about, this is typical of Apple. Apple has procurement department which is divided into different offices, and one office is all that is related to the purchases for iPhone and iPad. So iPhone and iPad are related product, and people in that department will be dedicated to buy all the stuff needed to manufacture Apple iPhone and iPad. Then there is another office which include people buying stuff to manufacture all that is computer related. So all that is related to realizing MacBook, MacBook Pro, MacBook Air, and stuff like this are grouped in the same department. So here there is an output logic. So I realize a product and I group people which are able to buy all the purchasing categories that are needed to a product. It's a different vision. Before, per purchasing categories, now more purchasing categories for a final objective, the output, the product. Same can be for a project. There is, I know a famous company in Italy, which is a construction company which realize bridge, which realize a tunnel, which realize hospital, which realize airport, which realize metro, underground metro station, and these are type of project that the company executes: civil, construction, air, and so on. And for each type of project, it has a specific procurement department. Procurement department which is specialized in buying stuff for the different project typology. This is again an output perspective. In this way, I am not gaining advantage on the efficiency side, but on the effectiveness, because I'm having a final perspective. So I'm maximizing purchases not per input, so per purchasing category, but per output, because I want to buy something which is effective and tailor-made for a product, for a project, or for a customer. And I will focus on specific product, project, on customer requirements. So I'm gaining much more effectiveness. These are, of course, complementary choices, and according to context, I can choose one or the other. The final lever is the level of centralization. Independently from how I decide to organize people in the procurement department and which activities I ask them to manage, I need to understand how much procurement process management is centralized in a central procurement department or decentralized at the local level. Usually companies today tend to centralize strategic activities in order to gain coherence on its execution, and delegate sourcing or especially supply activities to local area because they can be more efficiently executed at local level. But there are center drivers that can be considered in order to understand if it is more suitable to centralize or decentralize activities. When we First driver is the need to exploit common parts among purchases, so gain volume effect. So, I mean, different user can have common needs to be purchased. Then, how much purchasing is relevant for the company in terms both of spending, in terms of number of category, in terms of number of orders, and so on. How much is the need to gain bargaining power? How much is the need to have special competencies? How much is the need to integrate with suppliers? How much is the geographical dispersion of the company? If I need a supply market which is local or global, if there are constraints on the supply side like politics, like logistics constraints, like market constraints, and so on. These are the main drivers that need to be analyzed, and here is the trend. I mean, when I have to exploit common parts among purchasing in order to, gain volume effect, of course, centralization is most, it's the most suggested solution, like same as the purchasing are very relevant. If I have, a lot of incidents of purchasing on the income statement, of course, I will need a central big procurement department able to manage this relevant spending base. Same if I want to gain bargaining power. If I centralize, I consolidate volume within a single procurement function, so I'm able to gain bargaining power, like concentrating my demand. Same if I need for special competencies. If I centralize, I can create special offices, specialization for purchasing categories, able to focus their attention of the buying of specific categories. When I need to integrate with supplier, of course, if I have local offices, decentralized offices, it's easier to do that because local offices are more likely to be proxy to supplier to which I want to integrate. The more the company is geographically dispersed, the more there is the need to have a centralized office. But of course, there is a breaking point because when companies are really dispersed, a centralized office is not able to manage everything, so we need also the local office in order to support the central structure. If I want a supply market which is more local, of course, decentralization is suggested. If I want supply market which is more global, centralized function is suggested. And finally, when there are constraints on supply side, like the impossibility to move or implement a global sourcing strategy, centralization pays back. But just to realize the idea, what does it mean centralized or decentralized? Let's just see some models about this centralized model, which are possible. This is not exhaustive, I just will give you an example. Which are the possible options? This is, the totally centralized option. This is the most common option when we talk about centralization. There is a central procurement office being in the first level of the organizational chart, with the same treatment of production and marketing, which are other functions, other departments at the first level. Which is quite different, as you see here, from the totally centralized example number 2, which is common in very big and international company. There is a procurement office at a central level, which has, equal treatment if compared to marketing and production. But then, as the company is very big, the central procurement department is not able to supervise everything just from the central side. So local procurement office are included, like for example in production side dispersed all over the world, but these procurement office are not local office of the production department, but are simple people that are taken out from the central procurement department and sent at the local level, meaning that the hierarchical reporting of this procurement office is still the central procurement department. This means having a centralized vision, which has also a local local supervision because I mean the company lives in a complex and globalized and dispersed environment. But as you will see the next example, and this will be clear how can this model be configured in a different way. As a decentralized model instead, there is this one. This is the other, I mean, most common diffuse model for decentralization. As you see, at the first level, there is no procurement department present in the organizational chart of the company. While instead, like for example for production, I mean we have production in different geographical area, and each geographical area has its local procurement office. Local procurement office which reports directly to the production business unit of the production department. And it is the totally decentralized model, which is quite different from what we call the hybrid decentralized model, which, I mean, is similar to this one, but we have a central procurement department which is in charge, which has been given responsibility on some categories, like for example the indirect purchasing services, all that is, I mean, transversal and all that is common to different functions. So there is a central procurement department which has been given responsibility only to some categories, like the indirect purchasing. While instead, at the local level, like for example production plant in different geographical areas, local procurement offices are defined directly reporting to the production function, and which have responsibility to procure and to purchase all the other purchasing categories that are not under the scope of procurement, like for example direct purchasing. Each geographical area will produce certain product. This product will require raw materials, components, sub-assembly, and stuff like this. The local procurement office will have the responsibility to purchase this type of goods and services, which are specific of products. While instead, the central procurement department will be in charge of purchasing all that is common and all that is shared in terms of needs among the different function, and in this case production site in the different geographical areas. Which are the advantages and disadvantages of centralization and decentralization? When I push toward more decentralization, of course I maximize local needs and of course local performance. I mean, I don't need coordination because each geographical area, each local business unit can do whatever he wants in terms of purchasing process management, and clear responsibility are defined. Look at the previous model, this one. Central procurement manage indirect purchasing and local procurement manage direct purchasing. Clear responsibilities are defined. So, I mean, in the company, it's very evident who is managing what. However, in decentralizing, I lose some of the advantages that instead decentralization is giving me, like development of skill and competencies which are typical of a central procurement department. I mean, possibility to establish long-term relationship development with supplier, because suppliers are attracted by central procurement unit able to guarantee them long-term and very huge contract in terms of volume, which is not possible with local solution. You can gain learning and volume economies of scale by bundling volume and request. You are able to standardize because you put together a request coming from different parts of the company, so you are able to standardize the needs and gaining more efficiency, and of course you are able to rationalize supply base. So putting together all the needs, you are able to choose one time only supplier most suitable for each category, and so you are able, of course, to reduce the number of supplier, which is higher if I make these activities for each geographical area and including different people with different background.